Our final speaker for the day is the most handsome guy in game development in Wellington, New Zealand. He's the managing director and co-founder of PikPok's, a leading digital publisher across mobile, tablet, and desktop. In his 16 years at the New Zealand-based company, he has led studio operations, built a successful game portfolio, and overseen the creation of many engaging console titles. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Mario Wynands.
Well, thanks for that introduction. Pity you had to qualify most handsome down to Wellington and to the game development industry, but oh well. I'll take what I can get. So thanks very much. Very honoured to be here today and speaking. It's been I think 3 or 4 years since I've been in Singapore, so it's good to be back and see the local industry thriving. I'm going to be talking about a range of different things in the studio, fairly high level, give you a bit of a sense of our approach to things. I'm not going to be digging too much into particular strategies around advertising creation or retention and how we go about doing that. Rather, the whole studio end to end, how our publishing operation fits together, and kind of the philosophy that we run with. This is kind of the list of things that I'll cover over the course of the next 50 minutes or so. So what is PikPok? Well, I'd like to consider us a leading digital video games publisher. We work across mobile, tablet, and desktop being PC, Mac, and Linux. But we didn't really start there. We, as was mentioned before, we've just had our 16-year anniversary yesterday. When we started the company back in May of '97, we set about becoming a console work-for-hire studio. So for a lot of that first decade of the studio's life, we worked in the console space, working across PlayStation, Xbox, and working with traditional publishers. But we found that we aspired to take control of our own destiny and be creating more of our own content, less licensed product, and we didn't want to be a casualty of a big publisher's CFO deciding that our line item project wasn't worth it anymore. So we became a publisher. Currently we're based in Wellington, New Zealand. We have all of our operation there. We do what we consider high-end development for mobile, tablet, and desktop. We've published about 24 titles across the mobile side of things, and about 4 titles across console and desktop. We do license and fund third-party content, so we're not only self-publishing, but we're publishing content from other developers, and we work with large content owners and brands. We have been quite successful in building a large install base. We have tens of millions of installs and currently have a headcount of about 80 people. And there is a picture of about 80 people, more or less. So that is sunny Wellington, though not quite as sunny as it gets here. So this is a range of the titles that we've worked on. Hopefully some of these names are recognisable to you. We've been very successful with games like Flick Kick Football. The Flick Kick series itself has had over 20 million downloads. More recently, Into the Dead is a game we released last December, and that's done really well for us. We actually released this game last week across iOS, Android, and Windows Phone. Turbo Racing League, free-to-play game, and there's big prizes to be had if you happen to live in the US. There are no prizes to be had if you don't live in the US right now, but if you're from there or have friends there, then tell them to download the game and give it a try. To look at some of the specific successes, to give you a little bit of context for what I'll be talking about, these are sort of 4 different things that we're quite proud of, that we would consider successful examples of our publishing approach. As I mentioned, Flick-Kick Football and the Flick-Kick series has been very, very good for us. We released our first Flick-Kick game, actually the second title we ever released on mobile back in October, November 2009. We're very successful with Flick-Kick Football, which came out in about July 2010, and have continued pushing that franchise. We've also had great success recently with the Oreo Twist Lick Dunk game, which was quite confusing to a lot of people because they assumed it was an adver game, though the relationship that we built up with Kraft, now Mondelez, who own the Oreo brand, for us this was really about building a product extension of the Oreo line. So it wasn't actually about selling more Oreos, it was about creating a new way to engage with that product and a new way to kind of experience that Oreo ritual that they've built their advertising campaign around for I think 30 years now. And so it was a little bit confusing when people actually found we were monetizing that product and had ads for other products in there, but that's done really well for us and for Kraft. Into the Dead I mentioned, zombie first-person endless running game. We actually just announced a few weeks back that we did 10 million downloads. We're now up to 12. And Shatter, which was one of our original IPs for console, has done well for us also. That's a premium product that we've done over 1 million units on. So that gives you a bit of a sense of some of the stuff we've been able to achieve. As I mentioned at the start, when we started in May of '97, we thought we knew what we were doing because we were young and ambitious and just out of university. And we set up this company without really having a plan. We knew we wanted to make games. We didn't really know how to do it. When we finally won that first game development contract, we thought we'd made it. But there, that was where the hard work really started, and it took a number of years for us to really hone our craft and become good at even just the process of making games, which is hard in itself. But as I mentioned, we had this aspiration to get out from under the umbrella of publishers, to take control of our IP, to take control of our future. And as we kind of moved up the value chain and started publishing our own stuff, and then moved on further to starting to work with other smaller developers, we found that learning never stopped. There was always more to do, there were more things to take care of, and really the whole nature of the business changes as you go. And luckily for us, the philosophy that we have in the studio, we're always willing to change. We're willing to learn. We're willing to embrace new learning. We're willing to create new positions, or people are willing to take on responsibility that they didn't have before. And that's really been very important for us in being able to take advantage of kind of moving from being a console developer to a place where we're actually responsible for managing our IP and selling our IP and making money out of that IP. But before we go any further, it's worth having at least some sort of concept of what publishing is in the context that I'm talking about it. For us, publishing is a very broad thing. It's not related to just kind of the marketing side, marketing, advertising, putting stuff in a box and shipping it out there. For us, it's a much broader thing that encompasses the curation. It does cover elements of production. It does cover marketing, obviously, distribution and monetization. So for us, it's this end-to-end thing that kind of permeates every part of the business. And I try to embody that in this slide, which is actually part of our publishing deck and designed to intimidate smaller partners that we might want to work with by demonstrating just how many relationships we need to have to be effective at this. But for us, this is kind of shows how it all fits together. This is the value chain, and where before we may have been focused as a pure development studio on that development component, you can see that there's a lot more that kind of wraps around that that you need to do to go from that very initial concept right through to being able to get that product to market and make money off of that concept. One of the key things that we found as we went through this evolution was just how many more things you have to keep in your head at one time. When we were just a developer, we only had to focus on the one relationship, the relationship that we had with the publisher. The customer is there, the ultimate consumer, the gamer, is behind that, and you always have a long-term view there. But even then, you're creating the game according to the needs of the publisher that you're working with, certainly under that traditional model. So we've found that there's a lot more relationships involved. It's a lot more nuanced. There's much more to consider. So I'll go through each of these different areas here. So I think one of the key things for us as we moved into this phase of self-publishing was we felt that it was really important not to be trying to rely on creating one great game and hitting that out of the park. Certainly there are companies that have been successful doing that. There are great companies that have managed to focus all of their resources, all of their efforts, and create something that's become a hit. But the reality is that those stories are very few and far between. And from the outset, we felt that if we were going to move into the mobile space, if we wanted to move into publishing, we needed to create a portfolio of product. A portfolio of product that would be robust, that would allow us to create a community, that we could cross-promote these titles towards each other, and a portfolio approach that meant that if we created something that was a failure, that wouldn't be the end of the company. We weren't betting the farm on just a single title. It's worth noting, I guess, that there are a lot of companies out there like Rovio and Halfbrick that kind of seem like they're one product companies, or at least that's I think the impression a lot of people have. But actually, it was creating a portfolio of product for those companies before they had that hit that allowed them to get to that place where they had that really breakout success. So for us, as we moved into the mobile space, the sense of creating a portfolio that was going to be supportive, that was going to grow over time, that we could manage, was really important. So where did the ideas for the games that we're going to make come from? We have a range of different things that we want to do. We want to create our own original IP. We want to bring new ideas and new games to market, and we've done that. And we've been able to do that with games like Into the Dead and the Flick Kick series. And the ideas for those games have come from very different places within the studios. Sometimes we see that there's an opportunity in the marketplace, given that we feel there's a hobby or a sport or an interest or something that has been underexploited, and we feel we could make a great game based around that. Sometimes it's a little bit more creative, so Into the Dead came from just wanting to do something quite different to the games we'd done before, but seeing if there was a way we could kind of flip the endless runner genre on its head. So we work with different people within the studio to try and bubble all these ideas up to the surface. Some of it's ad hoc, and these ideas come from management. Some of it comes from people working in their own time. So for one day every month, people can work on whatever they want. They can work on their own games, their own ideas, and then over time those get built up into prototypes, and they may be something that we want to put more resources behind. We also have game jams once a year as well, where we set aside 1 or 2 weeks that the whole studio actually stops everything that they're doing and just works on creating new ideas and gaming prototypes as well. And that's been great, not only to generate new ideas, but to keep everybody invigorated in the studio. It's something that Double Fine's been quite successful with also. As I mentioned, we also work with external licenses and brands, and we get approached from different external parties. A lot of games or a lot of brands aren't very suitable to be to have brands wrapped around them. We've been approached by a chewing gum company before that we didn't quite feel that we could wrap something compelling around that. But the Oreo opportunity, for example, we straight away saw that we could do something with that and felt that that was a strong enough brand. The great thing about external brands and licenses is that it actually brings new users, new awareness to your portfolio. So one of the things that was very exciting about the Oreo product is the Oreo Facebook page has over 40 million people. So that was one of the things that we saw. Well, here's a really strong brand. We can leverage that audience. We can create a great game. And then when that game is part of our portfolio and we have those users, we can then direct them to our other products within our portfolio and make money off of that too. One of the things that we are really excited about that we've started doing over the last couple of years is working with smaller developers and working with them to create great games and then publish them as part of our portfolio. If you are interested in doing that, and this is not a sales pitch, you can find out more information about that at pikpok.com/submissions, and we'd be happy to hear from you. The great thing about that is not only do we get to give back to the community and help smaller developers be all they can be, but also, it helps diversify our portfolio and means that we bring new ideas, new creativity into the team, into our portfolio that keeps diversity there, because we're conscious that we have a certain way of doing things, we have a certain process, we have certain people, and that creates a certain flavor of game, and we just want to make sure that we're always kind of challenging that and kind of pushing the boundaries. Very important for us though, as we go through these ideas, to work out, are they actually going to make money? At the end of the day, this is a business, and we need to, if we're investing in the development of games, make sure that we're going to see a return, and we're going to see enough of a return that makes that exercise worthwhile. So one of the things that we do is we apply a number of different commercial questions and very high level simple ones around whether we think that this is a good fit for the company. Does this game idea, this concept, this prototype match the portfolio? Does it have mass market potential? Is it going to be able to go wide? Is it going to be something that's very localized to a particular market? If so, then we're not interested. One of the items that I've highlighted here is, does it have a promotional hook? And I think this is one of the key flaws that a lot of mobile developers don't address, is that you need something about your game that you can build a promotional campaign around. For Flick Kick Football, for example, we know that that's one of the biggest sports. Soccer is one of the biggest sports in the world. For Into the Dead, the push there was for a new spin on the Endless Runner and doing something first person and very reminiscent of a first person shooter. For the Oreo game, obviously the Oreo brand was the promotional hook there. But you need something to be able to craft a bit of a story around and build a campaign. So if it goes through that filter, then we'll put that into pre-production and away we go. Some other things that we've had to do since we've moved into the publishing space. One of the things that's been very, very important for us is our lawyer, and having a US-based lawyer who has game-specific expertise has been very, very valuable and important for us. So for those people who are growing and you need legal advice on certain things, I would definitely recommend making sure you get people who have experience in the game space. Something that we've started to get more aggressive about is making sure we're protecting our IP with trademarking. So we actually trademark almost all of our game names, all of our technology brands, the brand of the company itself. Not only do we do this to make sure we can defend ourselves and defend our IP, but actually going through the motions of trying to register something, which you can do fairly cheaply, also make sure that you're not infringing on other people's trademarks. And there are a lot of big companies out there that are very aggressive about defending their marks, like Disney, like Zynga. If you want to have something with friends on the back of it, you better think twice about that, because they will jump on you. There's a URL there, uspto.gov, which is an easy place where you can search different trademarks in the US. So moving along. So just in terms of IP and content and portfolio in general, one of the examples that I encourage you to go out and learn more about is Marvel. Marvel is a company that we tried to model ourselves or reference many times over the last decade, because we saw a company that was struggling in a particular industry which had a lot of problems. During the 90s, Marvel was a second-class citizen to DC Comics. The comics industry itself was struggling, and they really started to take ownership back of their licenses, their IPs. They created more of a portfolio-based strategy. They developed out different opportunities themselves. They made sure that they kept an eye on quality. And it's what they're doing with the Marvel franchises in the movies in particular at the moment, which is really good for mobile developers and publishers to learn lessons from. Because if you actually look to see what they're doing in terms of building up these individual superheroes and being able to bring those together into ensemble movies like the Avengers, then break back out again, they've been very successful in creating this portfolio of movies that's been able to feed back and forth into each other. That contrasts very differently to what Warner has been doing with the DC comics, where it's been much less of this cohesive approach, much less of a portfolio-based approach, and this Justice League movie that they're pulling together, I think there's a hope that it's going to replicate the success of the Avengers, but they haven't done the groundwork that Marvel did over the course of a decade to make sure that all of those strands came together and that portfolio support was there. So definitely learn more about Marvel if you get the opportunity. I won't spend too much time on development, but to mention a few of the things that I think are important in terms of how they feed back into the publishing process. One of the things we run an agile-based methodology that allows us to keep smaller teams where we can iterate quickly. But the key thing that kind of jumps out of that agile methodology is that it has high levels of communication and productivity, and that not only is important at the development level, but there's a lot of communication that goes upwards as well. And communication and oversight of the development process is something that's been not only very important to make sure that the quality of the products is strong, but also to make sure that all of those different stakeholders across the business, the marketing side, customer support, technology support, everybody who's involved in publishing is aware of what's going on and is able to contribute to the development process along the way. So to focus on that communication aspect, we start off every project with a kickoff meeting that not only the development team is at, but every member of senior management is at that meeting and is in a position where all of the goals of the product, from both a creative standpoint and a commercial standpoint, are communicated. Everybody's on the same page. Everybody knows what we're trying to achieve, and that's an opportunity for everybody to voice their concerns, to voice what they see as issues, to voice what they see as opportunities. So everybody starts off from this common place and is able to have their say. We then reinforce that over the course of development with weekly meetings, weekly show and tells, which are very informal, where people show the work that they've been doing over the course of the past week. And then we have monthly formal senior management reviews that review progress, that review what the plan is going forward. Now these aren't situations where senior management is telling the development team what to do. These are really opportunities where senior management is being exposed to a product, they're being exposed to a plan. They might challenge the development teams on things, they may raise red flags, but really then what's the word I'm looking for? The power to actually come up with the solutions, to choose what's worked on and what's not, is pushed back onto the development team so that they are empowered to find solutions to any of the issues that may be coming up. So I definitely encourage you guys to look at, if you're not using Scrum or some other agile-based development methodology, definitely look into that and definitely look at ways that you can get all the key stakeholders involved in the development of the products throughout development. This empowerment of the development teams also is something that carries through to after the release of the product as well. So as we start getting the analytics back, as we see what's resonating with consumers and reviews, as we get a sense for where the product is going, it really comes down to the development team who is close to that data, who is close to that product, who knows that code base, who knows what's easy to develop, what's easy to add, what's easy to change. They're the ones that we want actually driving that ongoing update process. So again, that's where they are empowered to actually be able to do that, and senior management then is just a guiding influence that brings their experience to bear, their intuition to bear, to raise the red flags. This is very, very different from when we were working on larger console products, where you needed a very structured plan. You had millions of dollars at stake. Actually empowering the team to be able to make these changes to short circuit this decision loop has been very empowering for us, and definitely increase the rapidness with which we can roll out new product and increase our revenues over time. One approach to our technology that I will mention that's been very useful, it was actually intended to be developed to be used to get through console platform manufacturer submissions a lot more easily, but has actually been quite beneficial on the now that we're doing a lot more of our own product, to actually create consistency and quality across our portfolio. Stencil is an initiative that we started way back in 2004, where we found that we were doing some of the same work over and over again for our games. We were creating the same kinds of file management technology, the same kinds of menuing systems, pop-up messages, all of these sorts of things. And because it's kind of boring work and it's kind of easy work in a way, we kept on pushing those tasks onto junior programmers. But from a console perspective, these areas within the game are actually the most important from the platform manufacturer's perspective. For the most part, they don't actually care about quality, but they do care about what a pop-up message reads, because they want consistency of the experience across the whole range of titles available for their platform. And that was very successful for us on console, but we found it's been hugely successful for us in the mobile space in particular, where there are actually less rules. There are rules in terms of service that Apple has. There is best practice that Google has, but it's the Wild West out there for the most part. So we've found that that using a technology which kind of creates a framework on which we can build all of our games. It's essentially like the wooden framework of a house. You build the framework, and then everything else goes on top of that creates the flavor of the house. But it's that foundation, that framework, that sets up that common structure. And having that common structure to be able to carry from game to game to game means that we've been able to keep a consistently high quality across all of our games. We've been able to stay compliant with the different terms of service and recommendations that Apple and Google have had. And as we have been able to add new features to this framework, all of our new games get the addition of this new features and content as we roll out new games. So that's something that's been very, very powerful for us. Distribution. When we started in the mobile space, it was all about iPhone. And now there are many, many more options, not only in the mobile space, but suddenly now we have tablets, we still have desktops, we have new consoles on the way, smart TVs, and we've talked about a lot of that stuff over the course of the last few days. We think that there's a real opportunity for companies who are able to get across multiple platforms and who are able to successfully deliver across multiple platforms at the same time. So that's the strategy that we have, where we're trying to not only create great games and create engaged audiences over time, but also be able to reach as many markets as possible. In a lot of ways, we're trying to be platform agnostic in the way that we have been over the last 16 years, and create great games that can be expressed across any different platform. So for us, we're now in a phase where we're trying to create our games, create our technology in a way that they can be developed easily across iPhone, across Android, across both phone and tablet, and have that all launch at the same time. And I'll talk about some of the benefits of that in a second. There is the question, though, of do you support multiple stores? And this is something that we've gone to and fro on, because at one stage we felt like, well, if we want to be on every platform, we should be on every store on every platform. But being on Android is a very different proposition to being on every different store on Android. And we found that the cost of actually getting onto all of these individual stores can be quite prohibitive relative to the actual revenues that you might receive back. So while we do have a very aggressive multi-platform strategy with regard to platform, from a store perspective, understanding that there's a lot of overhead moving from one store to another, we do actually only target the iPhone App Store and iPhone, iPad App Store and Google Play, and look to add the Amazon App Store, the Samsung App Store, only as those games are successful and as they warrant that additional investment. One of the things that we haven't actually done very well, but we're starting to invest a lot more in, is localization. We've had some talks earlier today that have mentioned the importance of localization to be able to really capitalize on different markets. We've been very successful in the US, we've been very successful in Europe, and we have had a lot of localization effort around addressing those European territories, but we haven't really taken advantage of some of those new emerging markets. Into the Dead, for example, Russia was our 4th largest country in terms of downloads, but only about 20th in terms of the money that we were making from that store. And we see that there's an opportunity there if we can get more aggressive about our localization. Apple themselves and Google actually suggest that from the outset, at launch, you localize your game into the list of English, French, Italian, German, Spanish, Brazilian Portuguese, as opposed to Portuguese, Japanese, Korean, and simplified Chinese and Russian. So that's what Apple is actually recommending that you do from day one right now. And we're restructuring our business and our process to actually be able to handle that. They do have a lot of metrics and data to be able to show that this actually makes a difference. And they've actually been able to say as well that if you can't localize your game, at least localize the storefront. If you can't localize all of your game, at least localize the main menus. So there's things that you can do fairly easily to get off to a better start in those different territories. I mentioned before that being across multiple platforms can be quite important, and one of the things that we realized early on was that if we only have a game on iPhone, then you're actually stopping or limiting the natural virality, that natural word of mouth of a particular product. If you have a friend talking to another friend and one of them has, I've got this great new game, Into the Dead, on my iPhone, you should try it out. If that friend only has an Android device and that game is not on Android, then that word of mouth virality stops there. If you actually have the opportunity for that word of mouth to pass from one platform to another, then that has the opportunity to carry on. So being across multiple platforms actually allows word of mouth to be denser, to travel more quickly, and for you to get more momentum from the outset. One of the quick anecdotes here, for a variety of reasons, while we released the iOS version of Into the Dead back in December, we didn't actually get the Android version out until late March. But within 2 weeks of releasing the Android version, we actually saw a 500% increase in iOS downloads at the time. So as the Android version was kind of taking off, we got a feature on the Google Play Store. We saw that word of mouth really kicking in there. So that was a great validation for us that the multi-platform strategy was the right way to go. Promotion, there's a few things we do, I think, that where we put emphasis that perhaps not everybody does. We put a lot of emphasis into the names and the icons of our products. A lot of our names of our products are kind of matter of fact, and there are developers out there like Firemint, now FireMonkey, for example, who put a lot of the success of some of their games like Flight Control down to the fact that they had a very simple name that was compelling but actually spoke to what the game itself was about. So that's why you'll find a lot of our games like Twang the Fox, Flick Kick Football, Into the Dead. They're kind of colourful, but they're also kind of straight to the point as well. Icons, and actually spending a lot of time on your icon is very important, because the icon may be the only thing that a particular consumer might come across, and that's your one chance to catch their eye. And we're spending a lot more time on creating in-game virality via things like Game Center, Facebook, and Twitter, and actually not just adding functionality that is some kind of very shallow level of integration where you're just spamming to people's walls. But being able to allow people to share their customizations, being able to share their achievements. Every play is actually a new technology that you guys should check out for the iOS platform, where you can actually record gameplay and share that with people via Facebook, via Twitter, via YouTube. Very powerful. We released that in our Turbo product. We have, I think, about 300 replays in the last week that have already been done. It uses virtually no memory, virtually no performance hits, so definitely worth checking out. Something that we have been good at is actually getting a lot of features on the store, and the Apple Store, the Google Play Store. We've been very, very successful. In fact, I think of the games that we've launched over the course of the last 2 years, I think 80% of them have been the recipient of fairly major featuring. And so I get asked a lot of the time, how does that happen? How do you do that? And the answer, I guess, is a little bit complicated because I'm not really sure, because Apple and Google never really explain the process to you. But it is a reality that quality and prior success attracts the store curators. So if you've got quality games, if you've had success before, then it makes it much easier to get the attention of the people who are managing the stores and get that featuring. If you don't have many games, then what you do need to do is try and track these people down. Apple people, Google people, they do attend conferences. If you get the opportunity to try and find them and introduce yourself, show them your game, take that opportunity, because they're very hard to get hold of. But once you actually have that face-to-face introduction, we've found that they've been very good at keeping in contact with developers, keeping an eye on what's going on, and it's much easier to maintain an ongoing dialogue if you've had that face-to-face meeting before. The other thing you can do that helps you get featured, and in fact that you need to do to get featured, is you need to follow those best practice guidelines that are out there. Very hard to get featured on the App Store unless you're using Game Center. You pretty much have to support Retina now. The more of the leading edge features you can support for a particular platform, the better. Google actually has a set of best practice guidelines that include everything from how the back button works to how you're supposed to format your store listings and screenshots and those sorts of things. The more of that stuff you follow, the more that you're aware of, the better your chance of being featured. We also do a bunch of stuff, and I guess a lot of this isn't very surprising because it's what a lot of you would do in terms of pushing your games when they launch. But there are a few things that we do differently. One thing that we do is we don't do any paid acquisition whatsoever. We've always been a little bit gun shy of spending a lot of money acquiring users, and in order to compensate for not doing paid acquisition, we've actually created big networks with other developers so that when one of our games launches, we can call on their networks to actually push our titles, and then in exchange, when they launch one of their games, then we'll send them traffic back their way. Now, if you can build a big enough network, and right now we're working with about 9 or 10 different developers, that means that you are potentially calling on tens of millions of other users that can prop up your game, and you'll be able to be successful there, and then when the time comes, be able to pay that debt back. So we operate on a click swap basis with that. We work with some really great developers that are quite happy to have a click swap debt owing to them for several months at a time, because we know that down the track that they will will be paid that back. So that's something that, as a tight-knit community that you have here, make sure you collaborate, that you help each other out, that you leverage each other's traffic in order to get ahead. One other point that I'll make just at the bottom there, when you launch a game, there's a lot of developers out there who will try something and then they'll wait to see how something does in the charts. Next week they'll try something else. It's very, very important at launch, where you have the most visibility, to throw everything you have all at once out there. So make sure when you're launching, your press releases are going out, your screenshots are going out, you're encouraging people to do reviews, do previews. If you are spending money on acquisition, do it then. If you are spending money on advertising, do it then. Your biggest effort should be all at the same time. So you do need to make sure that you plan everything out to make sure that you have the bandwidth to be able to do this. Because when you're stacking the promotions on top of each other, that gives you the best opportunity on surfacing above all of the other stuff on the App Store. And if you can just poke your head up enough, that's where the quality of your game starts taking over, and you'll have that natural word of mouth. But you do need to stack all of that stuff on top of each other for it to be most beneficial. So we're running out of time here, so I'll just quickly skip through a couple of examples. So I just wanted to show an example of how we were able to get leverage across our portfolio via promotion. And we have the ability to push different promotions and messages into our different apps. For the Super Bowl this year, usually our flick kick field goal game does really well. We wanted that to do even better, so we started giving away Wilson footballs in the game for people who were achieving certain scores. We were then promoting from there into the dead game. We just released a new American football zombie pack, which was of course very topical. And also Into the Dead promoted back into the flick kick field goal game. And then we also had the Oreo game, where we released the commemorative football Oreos, which has actually been released. These are Oreos that are shaped like footballs. And people were able to play the game and get these special Oreos that had different gameplay and different payoffs in the game as well. So all of these games kind of promoted between each other, and so enabled, in order to be able to create this big event, we leveraged the Super Bowl. We don't have any official NFL licensing, but we were able to leverage that passion around the NFL, the Super Bowl, and have three of our products not only be successful, but help each other be successful at the same time. So that was a great opportunity to leverage our portfolio from a single event and a single set of promotions, and have three very different games all benefit at the same time. And so lastly, as we run out of time, monetization, we do have a very different approach than a lot of other developers and publishers out there. We do use a lot of advertising. We're quite aggressive with the advertising that we have in our games. But we feel that's paying off for us, because over 50% of our revenue from mobile is coming from advertising at this point. We do have a very multi-layered approach, so our games have a lot of different types of ads and branded placements in a lot of different ways. So we use the very common kind of banner interstitial ad networks like iAds, AdMob, Chartboost and Playhaven. All of those have been great partners for us. More recently, we've been using incentivized rewards and as a means of gifting currency to the players, so that we can actually leverage people like kids or people who don't have credit cards, who are very invested in the game. They can go out and watch trailers or do whatever, and be gifted currency back, which keeps them in the game playing for longer. And then we're also using real rewards from a relatively new company called Keep. It's KIIP. their website is kiip.me, where if somebody achieves something within our game, they may actually be gifted a discount coupon or a prize like a football or like movie tickets or something like that. And that's been wonderful for us as well. So we do all of that on top of having in-app purchases also. One of the things that we're also relatively aggressive about is making sure that we're making money from everywhere. So if we're promoting our other games, whether we're doing that on our website, if we're doing it in our more games list within our games, we're tagging people with our affiliate iPhone store link along the way. And if you do that, then if somebody goes to the store and then buys something within the next 3 days, you actually get a very small piece of that. And then over time, as your traffic builds up, that can actually add up to meaningful revenues. We also sell t-shirts, music, and these have been great for not only incremental revenues, but they've also been great points of discovery as well. So people have been directed to our online music store, they've listened to the music, they like the music, they buy the music, and then they've gone on to buy the games as well. So music has actually been a great secondary revenue stream for us. So I'll just skip ahead to one example here as we close up. I mentioned Keep before, and they've been great for us not only as a high-value monetization partner, but Keep has actually proven to be an acquisition tool as well. We had one game where suddenly we saw a huge spike in revenue and usage and downloads over the weekend, very early on when we were using Keep in Canada alone, and we couldn't quite understand what was going on. And when we did a bit more research, we found it was a Keep campaign that was running in the game where people were getting points for a movie theatre reward system, which was enough points equivalent that they could have a free movie ticket or they could have a free soda and popcorn. And people were winning this and liking it and enjoying it and going out and telling all their friends. So we actually saw a massive uplift in the number of downloads and usage that we were having because people were actually winning these prizes within our game, which was great for them because they got some tangible product for playing. It was great for us because we were making money. It was great for the brand owner who was giving away these coupons because they were getting people into the movie theaters as well. So there's a lot of monetization opportunities out there, especially in the advertising space, that are a little more creative than just sticking a banner ad up on the screen. So definitely have a look and explore different opportunities there. So I think we're done. We're out of time. I'll skip past that. And just say, in summary, publishing is a broad function that's embodied throughout the life cycle, so it's not something that's just tacked on to the end. Empowering staff for us has been really necessary to work at the pace that we've found we have to work at, and it makes sure that you're effective and responsive to those publishing issues and activity that comes along. We have a wide range of different enabling technologies and partners that we use, and I encourage people to go out and investigate some of the partners. I'd be happy to talk offline and give you any recommendations if you're looking at any of them. But do bear in mind that there's so many things that you can do, so many things that you could focus on. Just try to focus on those things that are important that you think will make the difference for you. Don't bite off more than you can chew, but do look at the different options carefully and make sure you work on those things that move the needle. So there we go. That's it. We do? Okay, so 5 minutes. Any questions off the basis of my ramble?
Hi. I was just curious if is there anything you can say about like what your publishing deals look like? Like, do you purchase IP or?
So we like to think that we're a developers publisher. So, I've done a lot of publishing deals from the developers side before, so I know what annoys me when I approach a publisher. So there's a few things that we try to be consistent about. So we don't ask to own the IP. That's, we understand that that's your asset. That's what you're trying to build up. That's what you're trying to build your company around. It's the same thing for royalties. Every deal that we've done has had royalties stacked in the developer's favor. Sometimes we pay advances, not huge amounts, but in the tens of thousands of dollars. And in those instances, we might be recouping that first before the rev share, but there's no additional overheads or bonuses or anything else that we try to recoup on top of that. Non-exclusive 50-50 rev share on merchandising, so we'll try to push music and t-shirts and all that sort of stuff as well, but you're not limited to revenue just through us from that, and we encourage developers to do their own work there. And then of course we try to bring our expertise to the table in development. We make our designers, engineers, creative people accessible to the partners we're working with. You'd be assigned a product manager that would help kind of guide development and make sure we stay on track and adjust things if we need more time or something like that. Leveraging all of our promotional capabilities, so we take the lead on the marketing, that side of it. We leverage our relationships. We show, we meet regularly with Apple and Google and show them stuff that we have in development. But we also, while we require the integration of our promotional technology, we actually make that available to the developer as well. So you have the ability to promote products that are not being published by us also. So any success that the game has in terms of building up a network becomes a network asset that you can leverage also. On the flip side, I think that's most of kind of what we offer. On the flip side, we tend to be looking for games that are iPhone, Android. We're starting to get into PC and Mac publishing as well. Looking for games that kind of stay under that 50 meg download limit. We like to have the first option on sequels and that sort of thing, but we can talk about that. And we require our analytics and cross-promotional technology and stuff to be integrated also. So, but if you send an email to the submissions email address, then we can provide a written list of that as well. Cool. Any other questions? How are we going? Someone there? Yep. Yes.
You mentioned that you do cross-promotion on a click-swap basis. If you could elaborate a bit more on it, and is there an exchange ratio, or do you do one-to-one, and have you experienced that clicks from certain partners are less or more valuable? Because in the end for you it's about the conversion rate after the click.
Right. Yes, we... All of the click swap deals that we've done have been on a one-for-one basis, and the way that we ensure quality is by choosing the partners that we work with relatively carefully there. So we don't just do cross promotions with anybody. We try to choose developers that we trust, that have good quality games, and that have players that do have high expectations. I think we'll continue to work on that basis where it's just a one-for-one click. We do see that there are big differences between conversion rates with We've done click swaps with Hothead, for example, who do Big Win Soccer, Big Win Baseball, Big Win Basketball. Obviously, when we're cross-promoting back and forth between our products, we can see install rates off the back of a click of 35-40%, something like that. So sometimes it's the partner, sometimes it's the title to title. Everybody's just kind of trusting and happy to work on that basis for now. So when we get down the track, we might start taking a closer look at that. But we don't want it to become too metrics focused, because right now it's just very congenial and everybody's helping each other out, and using a one-to-one click exchange rate is the cleanest, kind of fairest way of doing that right now. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Cool. Any more questions as we wrap up here? No? Okay. Cool. Thank you very much.